Hello, teachers. Welcome back. This is Jessica Ellison, teacher educator at the Minnesota Historical Society, and I'm back again with Ami Naff, who's an exhibits researcher also at MNHS, to talk about some incredible women from Minnesota who fought for the right to vote. And we've got quite a character to talk about today. So let's talk about Bertha Moller.
Yeah, so Bertha Moller is one of my suffragist icons in Minnesota. She left her home for weeks-long tours across the state, trying to rally support for the women's vote. She spoke with strangers in their homes, in schoolhouses, in church basements, and she delivered this stump speech for suffrage without knowing if she would be met with support or skepticism. And as she was crisscrossing the state by train, Moeller recruited members for the Minnesota Women's Suffrage Association. Building this statewide support for women's suffrage was key to convincing lawmakers that the cause was vital to both urban and rural women. And after a successful visit in Crookston, Moeller wrote back to MWSA leaders, "There may be a suffrage organization completed here this week. Then I'll know you will join me in one big hip hip hurrah." So a couple years later, at their annual conference in 1917, MWSA members decided not to support the pickets at the White House, which were led by the National Woman's Party. And these picketers were known as the Silent Sentinels. They were seen as unpatriotic, but some MWSA members, including Bertha Moller, supported the pickets, causing a rift in the organization. So Moller ended up leaving the MWSA and Minnesota. She went out to DC, where she joined the NWP picketers, and the crowds that she faced there were much more hostile than those back home. And many of the women were attacked and arrested by local police. The Boston Globe once reported that she bit an officer's finger while he tried to take away her protest banners in front of the Capitol, although other witnesses insisted that he had just scratched his finger on a pin. So Moeller was reportedly arrested 11 times in total, which is more than any other Minnesotan suffragist.
Wow. And so did she spend time in jail then?
She did. She had a couple of stints in jail, and we also know that the time in jail was not easy. It was a very bad experience. They were not nice to the suffragists.
Right. And so, I mean, if you're talking about Alice Paul of the National Woman's Party in your classrooms, definitely bring up Bertha Moller. I think for a couple of reasons. First, it's important to talk about how local this movement had to be successful. So the fact that she was going all over Minnesota, a really large state, when it was not as easy to travel as it is now, and getting support. And then the fact that the national movement needed support from women across the country, so that she went out to DC and was picketing, I think is really critical to understand this movement. I think it's also interesting that Bertha Moller was an immigrant. So she was born in Sweden and fought for the right to vote alongside so many other women. And so it's important to note that many groups, many communities were interested and fought for women's right to vote. So Bertha Moller is a great story. So thanks again for coming to talk about women and voting rights. And if you want more information, you can visit the Votes for Women website at mnhs.org. Thanks again.
Thank you.